It is time.
So this song is brought by John the Barber Gutwillig of the Disco Biscuits.
Yeah.
Recommended this song for you to listen to. We're going to be listening to Frank Zappa. Are you a big fan of Frank Zappa? Are you familiar with a lot of Frank's music?
I am era specific of Zappa. My like the Live at the Fillmore, apostrophe, one size fits all. Like that's my sweet spot for Zappa stuff. Like once it got into like the late 70s and like the 80s, I kind of fell off.
Yeah, he really does have like a really big repertoire of music, and it's one of those things that it's really hard to like actually know like all of it, right? Especially when you start getting into like double-digit albums, it just kind of gets like, my god.
He's had like 60 records or something. I mean, it's like it's a lot to,
Right. So we're going to be listening to this album called One Size Fits All from 1975, and this is Frank Zappa.
I love this record.
Great, let's go for it. It's this is Frank Zappa with Sofa Number 2 right here on Galaxy Jams Reacts.
Very gospel-y.
Very thick already, yeah.
Sounds huge.
It's such a huge sound.
Frank Zappa never ceases to amaze me that I can never tell where he's going.
Right.
And I absolutely love that about Frank Zappa. And his production quality in this is great. It sounds so
rich,
lush.
yeah.
And it's almost like a weird gospel song.
Yeah. And I really like also that the thing with Frank Zappa is that, and like I talk about this on the show sometimes, is that he's so good at sticking by the rules, just like he's so good at breaking the rules. And so, he can do like such prolific things, but then like literally 1 second later, he's doing some goofy, silly shit, which, you have to be like, have an art degree to really understand why he did that. You know what I'm trying to say? And so, and I also like how he switched to German. And the reason why he did that was because he had a fascination with the German people as he toured in Europe. And so that's so interesting how because the thing is like when you make a choice like that and you have like a whole, like even in like 1975, like making a record was difficult and you needed a whole team of people. And so to get a whole team of people to go ahead with, we're going to sing in German, and everyone's like, great, let's do it. I feel like it's like a really, really hard sell. And he was really good at selling his ideas to the people that believed in him, which is why he was able to like essentially do all this prolific stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And Tom, you sounded really excited when you heard that we were listening to this. What was your take on this? When's the first time you heard this?
Oh, first time, dude, forever ago, man. This was one of those records, that like, I probably, late 90s, maybe? You know, I think my dad was super into the Apostrophe record when I was a kid, and when Brothers Pass started, and I met the keyboard player Tom McKee, I feel like he was the one that was like, you know, had it on tape. I think, you know, it was like, oh, dude, you know, if you like Apostrophe, you should let's check out this. And yeah, you know, it's a great record. Inca Roads is on this, which the jam in Inca Roads sounds
crazy.
just like the jam in Reba, the Fish song Reba,
Yes.
and Inca Roads, kind of the same jam.
Oh wow, that's a good point.
Yeah, man, but it's a beautiful record. This is it's interesting. The music, yeah, Zappa's lyrics are always kind of like whatever. He's on his own trip, like trying to prove whatever point he's trying to prove. But musically, this record feels a lot more sentimental to me, like the just purely from the composition, not what they're saying. I mean, a lot of what they're saying doesn't matter, you know. Yeah, I love this record front to back. I mean, it's all great, and I love this track. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
especially where it's going, like right where we stopped, like the rest of this tune, it's you know, yeah, it really it gets to be, it hits you right in the middle, you know.
Yeah, Frank Zappa is so good at taking like the most ridiculous shit, and when you listen to it, you feel like this is something that needed to be said, right? And I feel like when you get really complicated and you have those prog rock bands, like sometimes I'll leave a song and I'm like, that sounded like sterile, or it sounded like it was just like, why did he do that? And Frank Zappa is really, really good at taking absurd things and making it seem like really important.
Profound, yeah. That's cool. I'm just taken aback with how full this song sounds, because anytime I hear something that was made in the 70s, I don't know why my brain automatically goes, it's going to sound a little thinner. It's going to sound like something's missing. And this doesn't. It's just completely filled out, very, I guess, analog, because that's what they were using. But everything just feels very full. There's nothing that sounds like super dated to me in terms of instruments.
Yeah.
What
Go on.
What else? What's an example of that? Of
Like thinness, I guess? Or,
yeah.
I can't think of anything in particular, but every single time I think 70, even 80s sometimes. I'm like 80s, 70s, my brain automatically goes, oh, that's older stuff, so it's going to have this thinner sound to it. And then this is not the first time I've been surprised by it, but I've got surprised by it again, where it's just like, wow, this sounds so full. I don't know if it's the sound system I'm listening to it through, but it just sounds really lush.
Yeah, or sometimes like the way that the instruments are mixed can be like a bit like really, really apparent, right? And so like, for example, when we were listening to the song beforehand, that was made in 1998, right? And I feel like the bass sounded good and everything else kind of sounded like kind of, you know, not remarkable in terms of the sound quality. But, you know, when we threw this song on, like I felt like I was like taking into this whole production, right? And so, cause like I feel like a lot of people, they get caught in this like mouse race, you know, if you will, like rat race, where it's like they focus on like a snare and they will, you know, they're going to spend 50 days in a row getting that snare to sound good, right? Instead of looking at the bigger picture of like making sure it all sounds cohesive and like together.
How they work together, yeah, exactly.
Dude, absolutely. I talk about this a lot with just like my friends or my bandmates, or you know, we just made an album with Ghostlight, and I'm currently making an album with this other band more. And you know, I produce all the records I make. So you know, and trying to talk to the guys about, you know, the differences, the different ways you can make records, and how they'll translate, and also how they'll last. You know, and I think things like what you were saying, Mike, about getting lost. You know, with like, hey man, you're going to sit here and pay attention to that snare drum for you know 2 weeks, but the track sucks. You know, like regardless of that's the best sounding snare you ever had in your life. You know, it's the vibe. You know, like there's a reason that it's been 40, 50 years, and we're still collectively as a people listening, and you know, and younger kids are still discovering the Beatles and Zeppelin and Floyd and the Stones and those albums, and it's because of the performance. You know, like this was a group of people in a room making this shit happen, not like somebody,
adjusting waves on a computer, to get like the wave, like,
making things
perfect. And,
perfect. Yeah, perfection. I don't think resonates with us because we're not perfect. Like it's
Right.
not a thing. That Zappa record, that's this song that we're listening to, I would venture to say, was, if not all of it, at least everything except the vocals was done live.
Yeah.
Like all those people were in one room at Zappa's house. That's where his studio was. And they were making making magic together, like that's where the magic is when it's a group of people, it's like playing to each other and playing to the room and creating something, conjuring something. It's like if you're just if you're micro focused on too many of the little things or zoom too far in, you're not going to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing about recording back then and the bands back then, and even up through the 90s, to tell you the truth, was, there wasn't like a lot of like, okay, I'm going to do the drums and I'm going to go back in and redo this track and I'm going to take the best part of this track. It's like they did it live in the studio and
Right.
they had that energy, kind of what you're talking about, Tom. They have that. It's the energy you're hearing as well because they're all in the same room and they're all playing it together and they're all going through that experience at the same time. And that's what produces, all that greatness. And also, I think back then, truthfully, you had to be on top of your game when you went into a recording studio. Nowadays, you're like, okay, I know I can mess up 50 times and still get this one take that makes me sound like a superstar,
There's no control Z.
Dude, absolutely.
That. Yeah.
Yeah, man. You had to just be good at what you did.
Yeah.
And if you weren't,
Yeah, you were
do
burning
something else.
You were burning some serious money in that place,
especially in Zappa's band, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Demand perfection.
I'm a firm believer that intentions and energy and mindset gets translated into a recording. I mean, like the thing is like when you listen to music, like it can like make people smile, right? Or it can make people cry. And it's like, that's like an energy transfer that's like somehow like being transferred from that period of time and those people's intentions like into like what they're doing now. And like, I feel like when people focus on the micro instead of looking at the macro, that's when people get lost in the weeds and they're not really creating like what they mean to do. It's like a painter that stuck mixing colors for 5 years to get that perfect color, as opposed to just putting whatever he feels and putting that flow out there and then just creating, right? And so, I think technology really helped a lot of people create a lot of new sounds, but it's also like bogging people down. And then also you kind of mentioned like things being like on a grid and like being quantized. Like it's hard. Like I like when you play as like a drummer, right? You can play to a click, but for some kind of music, I feel like it serves a purpose, but sometimes it's better to not. So then you have that natural like ebb and flow of like the back and forth of the band. And, even mistakes can be endearing, voices cracking or, hitting the snare just a bit off. Like it gives things character.
Yeah. I mean, it's time is democratic, or should be. It's what the drummer is in theory setting a pace or setting the time of a tune, but the rest of the band, where they fall on that, dictates everything, and
Exactly.
like you listen. A buddy of mine does a lot of like mixing for live bands, like as far as like their live releases, right? And I've had some opportunities to have a session open, and it's like these are like stadium bands. I mean, these are like and I would like solo just a guitar, or then solo just the bass, solo just the drums, and it's like, man, this sounds fucking terrible. It sounds terrible. You're just like, I can't believe these are professional musicians.
Right.
But then when you unsolo things and let the whole band go, it's perfection. Because everybody's, it's what everybody's doing that makes it awesome. Like the Rolling Stones, it's like, Charlie Watts is right down the fucking middle, and you got, Wyman laying back, and you got, Keith pushing over the time, and all of that makes that groove what it is,
Absolutely.
It's not, like Immigrant Song wouldn't make you want to wouldn't make you feel what it makes you feel if it was to a fucking click track. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, let's see where this song goes. You were saying it's going to
Yeah.
go somewhere cool.
Crazy.
I love it.
It's like the
Fucking
diary of
weirdo,
a
man.
madman.
Yeah, he's a very strange ending. I love it.
I love it, love it, love it, and that's what I love about Frank Zappa because I mean I think that you say writes absurd stuff. I think he just uses the voices as a tool and as an instrument instead of worrying about really getting deep with his lyrics or something like that.
Yeah, not worried about message as much as just using it as an instrument.
And kind of to paint a picture and to create characters. I mean, a dental floss tycoon. He paints a picture of that in Montana, and some of the other great ones. And I don't know. I've always loved Zappa. He always holds a special place down in the cockles.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, for example, there's a band I really like called Phoenix, which is like this French, like, electropop band. And what they do is, like, their words, it's kind of like word salad almost. They just sort of like, it's like words, but it's really like vowels that they just use essentially. And it's like, even though it's like random as hell, you can still like string together anything and find meaning in anything, right? You could literally take a dictionary and throw a dartboard at it and put the words together, and someone somewhere will find a way that they identify with it and what it means to them and things like that, which I think is such a beautiful thing about music,
Yeah, it's all about interpretation.
Yeah. One of my favorite bands is this band called Stereolab.
And
They have some things in English, but a lot of their lyrics are in like French or German, and I don't speak either of those languages, but it doesn't matter, like it's like the music's the music, and like it's like I'm able to, like you said, all art is just a mirror, it's the listener or the viewer or whatever, the participant is, you're just providing them options to see their own shit back at them. You know what I mean? And
such a good way to put
it's
it.
Like so it's like I don't know what she's saying in some of these tunes, but it could be fucking to the Americans. I don't know, but I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter. It's like it's it strikes me in a way, and it allows me to project what I need to project.
Yeah, and when you were just saying that, Tom, I was thinking about the song Gangnam Style. Remember that it came out from like South Korea? That
Right.
was like
Yeah, that's a good
gigantic, and it wasn't in English, and there
Yeah.
wasn't anything particularly crazy about it. Dude had a dance, you know what I mean? Dude talked about living in, an affluent suburb or whatever, and it just became like this mega hit. And I'm like, what about that song resonated with so many people that like don't speak that language and don't know anything about what he's talking about, but obviously people just really liked it. And you're right, it's just so interesting. Like I said, intentions, right, and thoughts and like mindset, right, it's all so important when you're putting it down. It's not just the sound, it's more about like what you want to do behind it and what is that song for, which I think is just as important.
I like to comment
Yeah,
from.
I mean, also
okay.
dance tracks are a kind of a different thing, right? It's like that. It's not necessarily high art, right? It's like you're appealing to the visceral response of music at that, right? You're trying.
It's like your lizard brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you're trying. I mean, like what you're trying to do is like Staying Alive by the Bee Gees. You know what I mean? Like that comes on, and it's just like whether you like it or not, you're at least just like, like
it's a
shit,
vibe.
You have to.
Yeah, I mean, it just has that groove, and like
Dancing
anything
Queen.
that has like a 4 and a floor. Yeah, I mean, like
absolutely.
anything that has that kind of thing it's going to attack you viscerally, more than emotionally or psychologically. Like the first thing that's going to happen is that kick drum is going to make you move your ass whether you want to or not, and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? This is fucking sick, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah, and you're right. There's so much music. Like for example, what you were just talking about is different than like someone with an acoustic guitar and talking in terms of what part of the brain like you're activated in terms of like how you're identifying with it. And I think that that's like a really, really interesting thing that you said. It's really about like a lot about like the genre, and that's one thing about Frank Zappa is like I feel like he hits like so many different places in your brain that you have like feeling music receptors, right, to be able to like understand what he's trying to do. And I think that that's like one of the things he was going for, right?
Yeah.
He's like trying to hit everywhere.
And this isn't like a blanket statement necessarily, but a lot of music you could put in a kind of two piles, an active listening,
right,
or passive listening,
right.
So something that's like dance track or disco or EDM shit, that's passive listening. You don't need to understand the artist, you know what I mean, or give a fuck about much of anything. It happens to you, and it's like almost, it could be an escape almost, whereas like active listening, I think, that's when you have to lean, you lean in and you're trying to understand and connect with that person, listening to like a Nick Cave record is a very active,
right,
task.
Yes.
We had a guest come on and call the former you were just talking about musical junk food or something like that before.
Yeah,
where it was
lower.
It's
like your lizard
a little
brain.
elitist. That's a little elitist. It sounds like you're disparaging dance music or disparaging.
Well, there's always a place.
It's like it's all necessary.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's always a place for Taco Bell at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I personally like both, and for those two reasons you're talking about, Tom, where there are definitely times where I want to engage the different parts of my brain when it comes to music, especially because I also like listening to how music is put together now. As a singer, I used to not care about that as much, but now I really do. And there is a definite difference when, like you had mentioned, strange time signatures. That always catches me. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Like, what possibilities could happen with this strange time signature as opposed to 4 on the Floor, which is, just to move your body.
Yeah, it's either it's like music can take you somewhere or it can keep you right where you are, but just kind of make like where you are like a bit better, instead of like grabbing you and like yanking you by the collar on this whole journey, Hi, this is Mike with Galaxy Jams Reacts. We hope that you enjoyed that React video. Be sure to check out the links below of when we're going to be live streaming our next show and also how to watch full episodes. Please hit that subscribe button. Every single one helps.